Welcome to the Conscious Living Podcast, conversations to educate, empower, and enlighten our world. An uplifting and inspiring series of conversations and talks with your host, Jackie Woodside. We are educating minds, empowering lives, and enlightening souls to create a world where love prevails. In this engaging podcast, we deliver exciting, positive, transformative talks and teachings designed to elevate your life. Now, let's join our host, Jackie Woodside, for this week's session.
Hi, everybody. Jackie Woodside here, the founder and the host of the Conscious Living Podcast, where we are here to educate, empower, and enlighten our world. So I'm just so grateful that you're here with us, that you care about just shining your light and being engaged in conversations about what it means to live life more consciously with time, money, with life, with your own, the real estate between your own two ears. It's something that I care an awful lot about, and I know you do as well. So thank you for being here with us. Today, I'm bringing to the Conscious Living Podcast a wonderful coach and consciouspreneur who is making his way in this coaching space. Gavin McHale is from Winnipeg, Canada, a Canadian author of the book Consciouspreneur, What to Do When the Hard Work Stops Working. He's also the founder of Maverick Coaching Academy, empowering entrepreneurs to become aware of the stories that hold them back. And don't we all have those? So Gavin,
Yes.
Welcome to the Conscious Living Podcast. Thank you for being here with us.
Thank you so much for having me. This is just so aligned. The work that we do is so aligned. So I think we're going to have an awesome conversation.
Awesome. Well, anything you want to add on, just about your backstory? I know you were a hockey player earlier on. So just tell us a little bit more about what led you to where you are as this budding author of the Consciouspreneur movement.
Yeah, what's funny is the book is called Consciouspreneur, but a lot of the stories are, hockey stories and stories from my life and my experience. And, the biggest one that I look back on in hindsight, if only I had known when it happened, but I was this budding junior hockey player with every opportunity to potentially play professionally. I was a goalie, and I was away from home. I was in another country. I was in Seattle playing hockey, and I somehow over the course of one season managed to orchestrate a complete meltdown. From having the opportunity to play pro to being completely off the radar. And it all came to a head in a fight on New Year's Eve in front of 10,000 people. Got my nose broken, got knocked unconscious, which is kind of funny in terms of the conscious, unconscious conversation. And really, that was, I know we can speak to this. That was life trying to show me what I thought of myself. That was, if only I could have seen the signs for what that really was. Of course it was a physical punch in the face, but it was also a punch in the face from life, from God, from the universe, whatever it is you believe in, saying, man, you got to change the way you're doing things. But of course, as an 18-year-old hotshot hockey player, I didn't see that. I didn't understand that at the time. I only understood it in hindsight. So a lot of the stories come from being that person who, much like a lot of the people I speak to, I wasn't very intentional. I wasn't very conscious. I had no idea. I had no self-awareness. And without that, we're just drifting. We have no idea where we're going. And of course, life is going to show us lessons that we need to learn.
Yeah, 100%. And I mean, how did you take that? You're 18, you're pretty young at the time. How did you take that lesson, and how did it mold you going forward with your hockey career and then ending up in this field as an entrepreneur?
Well, I wish I could say that was it and that made the change, but really where I took it was to the bottom of lots of bottles of alcohol and, trying to find my way and not. And, what's funny is about 10 years later, I went to school, I became a personal trainer because, again, it was something I was good at.
Yeah.
I liked being good at things. I liked winning, right? And became a personal trainer and was trying to do this thing that before it was cool to move my business online. And what I noticed through the help of a great coach and mentor is that I was falling into these same patterns of like avoiding failure and not really going to the next level because it was scary and trying to kind of like get out. I started noticing those patterns, and that was the real first shift, was, trying to build this online business, and for the first time really having to do something that was uncomfortable. I love the saying that, as entrepreneurs, really our businesses are just personal development vehicles, right? Like I needed to learn lessons to build that business. And then, as I progressed and built another business online, and then progressed more into the mindset coaching that I'm doing now, I continue to have to, I'm forcing myself to grow. But the real shift there was when I was told, like, hey, like, this is your responsibility and you're the only one holding yourself back. Tactics and strategies and Instagram hacks and sales hacks and all that stuff are not going to save you here. You have to go within. Like you said, you have to, deal with, water the grass and the real estate between your ears. And if you don't do that, you're going to continue spinning your wheels, and you're going to stay stuck in the exact same cycles of wondering why it doesn't work for you.
100%. And, you work with entrepreneurs. How do you see that, people in general, entrepreneurs, or just people in general, when people have goals, like everybody has desires, right? Things that they want in life. But, we have this way of holding ourselves back. So what do you see about that? The things that we do that hold ourselves back?
Yeah, I think, we call this, the layman calls this self-sabotage, right? Why do I keep doing this? Why does this keep happening? Or they call it fate, right? Why?
Yeah.
Maybe it's just not meant for me. It's just, it never works, right? And
I'm not one of the lucky ones.
yeah, like, that successful person is different from me in some way, right? And I won't digress too much into what I think will be my next book about the middle class, but I think it's this middle class mindset, or a lot of us that grew up with the boomer parents, or the parents who their American dream was just get a job and be safe and be secure, right? Very different than the new dream, right? And so I think what a lot of people do is they don't recognize that anybody can set any goal. Right? Our conscious brain is setting all these goals all the time. I want to make $1 million. I want to be 20 pounds lighter. I want to be, muscular or whatever, right? It sets all these goals, but they don't recognize that their subconscious brain, the 95 to 98% of your brain that is telling the stories and writing the narratives, and it's the identity. They don't recognize that is what's holding them back from actually taking the actions and doing the things required to have the success they say they want. And what I find is, in asking, in saying, how do I make $1 million, or how do I lose 20 pounds? They're not taking into account that the subconscious brain is always going to block something that feels unsafe. And if you've been, let's say, for example, just over broke your whole life and never held that much money, your subconscious brain is going to continue to block you from receiving or from keeping any extra money. I remember the first time I had like a 20K month, right? 20K months, like, for me at the time, it was like, this is insane. This is so much money. Somehow within the first 6 days of the next month, I had $0 left. I honestly can't even tell you how. I spent it on team members and ads and bought stuff, and I somehow got rid of it because it didn't feel safe.
Yeah.
And we don't understand, why do I always spend this money? Because it doesn't feel safe. And so I think we need to be really conscious of the fact that if you're feeling frustrated, or if there's something that you want that you have never been, you've kind of always fallen into these same patterns that have kept you from it, there's a reason for that.
Yeah.
There's a reason for that. That problem can be solved. We just don't ask that question.
You talked about the narratives that we create. I can't say more about that, Gavin, because, I'm thinking maybe some people don't actually know what that means or how we create narratives. So I find that, I think it's such an important point that it is really how we create our experience of life, not through what happens, but through our narrative about what happens. So I'm just go a little deeper with that.
Well, there's a lot of ways we could go here, but I think the simplest way to frame this for people is that we have this like decision-making cycle, right? An event happens either external to us or in our brains, right? Because we have a lot of events happening inside here. We then apply a belief or an assumption to that event, which makes us feel an emotion, which then drives action or a decision.
Okay.
Right. So if I'm making, and oftentimes these assumptions or these beliefs, they're unconscious, right? We are not conscious of them. So we are making this assumption. Let's say, for example, someone wants to make more money, but they grew up with the belief being hammered into them that money doesn't grow on trees, money is stressful, rich people are evil, money is the root of all evil, right? We have these beliefs that we just are making assumptions that it's going to be hard to make a lot of money. We don't even know we're making that assumption, but we say, I want to make more money. Our subconscious brain goes, well, no, that's really hard. And we're already working hard and we're exhausted.
Right.
So this belief, this assumption goes, well, we're already exhausted. So that makes me feel hopeless. That makes me feel powerless. It makes me feel, again, like maybe this just isn't for me, which then leads me down the path of procrastination, or I don't know what to do, or, maybe it's just not for me. And around and around we go on this vicious cycle of not doing the things that we need to do to have success, because in the words of Carl Jung, we haven't made the unconscious conscious. And when the unconscious is not made conscious, as he says, it will rule our lives and we will call it fate. Right. So the work we need to do is we need to go in and question those assumptions. What are these things that our brain is making us think are facts or are truth that are really just beliefs that can be changed?
Yeah. Yeah. It's 100%. That's so great. And that is how we create our experience of life. You know,
It is.
There's understanding and being able to operate inside of the difference between facts and perceptions is so much the keys to the kingdom. You know,
Yes.
there's people relate to their perceptions as if they are facts. How you feel about what he or she said, or
Right.
what you think, your opinion about what happened on the team. Or your fear about what might happen if you do this or do that. Separating fact from perception is, I think, it's just the keys to inner peace, really, because facts are, just what happened. He said I didn't do a good job on the project. Okay, that's the fact. My perception is, I suck. I'm going to get fired.
Right.
I'm going to lose my job. Or, he's so difficult. Why doesn't he ever see me? He doesn't ever appreciate me, and we go to all of these places that are so disempowering, and, kind of causes our own suffering. But of course, people don't think they're the cause of their own suffering. They externalize it to what's happening out there. You're onto a really cool point. Anything more you want to say about that? I've got other things to go on to, but anything you want to pick up on there?
Well, what I love that you talked about there, that's a really important note, is we externalize it.
Yeah.
And when I was first not so subtly reminded that everything was my own responsibility, I was reminded of the fact that what we give responsibility to, we give power to. So if you are saying that it's your boss's fault that you didn't do well, or that he never sees you, or whatever, on your example there, you are giving them all the power in your life. But if you could say, well, my boss said I didn't do well on this project, and it's my responsibility to learn every time that I do a project and get feedback. Well, why don't I ask more questions and see, what about it didn't I do well? Where could I learn? Where could I do better? Because sitting there and moping about it, which I was like the champion of moping. I was the best moper in the world in my hockey career. That's going to lead to what, and one of the stories I share in the book, one of my coaches pulled me aside and told me about the self-fulfilling prophecy, right? He said, you're angry that you're not playing the games, because I was a goalie and there's 2 goalies on every team. And he said, you're angry that you're not getting playing time. And in response to that, you're moping and not trying in practice. He said, what do you want us to do? Do you
Right.
want us to start playing you now? You think that's going to help? And it's like, this is that self-fulfilling prophecy. And it was like this whole explosion in my mind of like, oh no, like, I've been falling right into this trap. So what we give responsibility to, we give power to. And in the same breath, taking responsibility, radical responsibility for everything
Right.
gives you the power back to change it.
100%. That's such a key point. And yet, right, the design of a human being, the function of the ego is to protect and defend.
Yes.
I guess it's too painful in the human condition, too painful for the ego to say, yes, that's on me. Yes, I'm the one that needs to apologize. Yes, I'm the one that could have learned that better, done that better, communicated that better, whatever. And it just creates this cycle of suffering when the ego stays engaged. So it really is, conscious living, your ability to observe what the ego is doing, and that's what's keeping you stuck in this, kind of projection cycle of, they're the reason that I'm suffering. They're the reason that I'm upset. The role of the ego is a central part of this. And I believe it's our purpose as human beings to grow in consciousness beyond the limitations of the ego and to live life consciously.
That's, isn't that a profound statement? Like, and I agree with you that is our job. I believe as well, being here as these specks of sand on this crazy spinning rock in space. Like, what are we doing here? And one of the things that I work with a lot and what I've been trying to really cultivate within myself is to, as you said, become an objective observer of my own life. Almost bring myself back here so that I'm just kind of like floating above myself, watching myself going, well, that was an interesting choice, Gav. That maybe you shouldn't have done that, instead of like, oh, I suck. I'm the worst. I can't, we get in this emotional hurricane that again is caused by the ego that is it's trying to keep us safe from pain.
Yeah.
Right. The ego, the subconscious brain, they're trying to keep us safe. And they've taken events in the past, usually when we were children and didn't have the ability to actually think through any of this or make sense of it, and made those things fact and said, okay, for the rest of your life, you're just going to like try to fit in with everybody because, not fitting in is the worst feeling in the world. Right. And so then everything goes on that lens. And we don't recognize that the way we're feeling is simply a product of our ego. If we could pull ourselves out and look at it, like you said, separate fact from perception, we could go, oh, shoot, the facts are this, my perception is this. I could probably make a shift here. And I mean, imagine how many marriages would be saved from just like doing this, and like how many businesses could be saved, like from just getting out of your own way.
It's really the root of the repetition compulsion, which is the psychological mechanism where, you end up in different relationships, but with the same dynamics, that we repeat our wounds over and over and over again until they become conscious, so that you can make a different choice. And, it's such a funny topic because it really is that simple, but it's not easy to do. Because again, I call it just the human design, that we're the psychological mechanism of the ego is designed for us to survive. So transcending or transforming the ego and living consciously, living a high consciousness life that's not drained by the heaviness, the weight, the opinions of the ego, it takes something, because you do have to, you have to be a transformer. You have to see how the basic design is, that the ego is just there to keep you safe, and then be able to talk back to it. Be like, yeah, I wish he hadn't have said that. Yes, 100%. I wish that didn't happen, but here we are. Now, exactly as you said, where you put your responsibility is where you put power. So here we are. Now what's mine to do? what can I do differently? How can I show up differently? Like you did, as a hockey goalie. I'll bet you started showing up in practices a whole lot differently after your coach had that conversation with you.
I mean, let's keep in mind I was 18 years old.
All right. So maybe
I thought I knew everything. That
right.
being said, I can still picture the scene, right? So that stuck with me. I mean, I can still see his face. I can see where we were. I can remember exactly like the punch in the gut that it was him telling me that. Yeah. So whether it helped me in my hockey career or not, it was the exact piece of advice I needed. And I still carry that with me. This was in 2005. So 20 years later, I still carry that with me. And I think there's huge value in that because, like you said, we could keep running around in these same circles. I have this thought, this saying that the universe, God, whatever higher power you believe in, will knock lightly on the door with something, and then you don't listen, so it'll kind of pound a little harder, and then you don't listen, so it kicks the door down, and then you still don't listen, and that's when you get punched in the face. And that's when you have the moment. Of course, I literally got punched in the face, but that's when you have those moments of, I can't believe this happened. Yet if somebody looking from the outside, somebody like you or me that, has seen this a lot, would go, yeah, no, I probably could have seen that coming 6 months ago.
Yeah.
Right. Right. Because it's like all the signs were there.
Yeah. It's so funny, right? And we can see it in other people, but whatever the it is in the moment, the procrastination, the substance abuse, the phone addiction, screen time addiction, the giving up on goals, like whatever it is, you can see the it in someone else, but how hard it is to see it in yourself, which is why I think, group coaching, group programs, even, recovery programs, 12-step programs, any kind of group support, it's so helpful because you can listen to that person, and be like, oh my gosh, that's ridiculous. And then, a nanosecond later, you're like, huh, but I do.
Wait a second.
Yeah, right. Wait a second. I do that. I say that to myself. And immediately what you see in that person that looks ridiculous, when you can start to see it in yourself, it's like the ego softens and you develop just a little bit more mastery.
That's really it. And I will often say to people, what we judge in others or what we see in others is often like turn the mirror around, because that's we can only often see it. And this is kind of like a higher level spiritual type conversation, but we can only see it if we experience some of it ourselves, right? So when you see someone else procrastinating, and this is what's so cool about the coaching I do. So I'm sitting here talking to this, multi-million-dollar entrepreneur, and I'm seeing them procrastinate. And then I'm going, like, half the time when I'm about to coach someone, I go, just so you know, I'm about to coach myself here as well. And then I'll share with them the coaching message, but I recognize that I'm also experiencing the exact same thing and I need to take my own advice. And that's this whole, like this like consciousness type of conversation that like we are essentially all one, and what we see in another is what is going on in ourselves. So if you can see that in another, again, radical responsibility, turn that mirror around and look at where you may be doing that, because likely that's how we can often find where our breaks are or where our cracks are, where our issues are that we need to go in and fix.
Yeah, 100%. And they're there. They're always there, top of wits, On the flip side of that, there are also qualities that we can develop that lend towards success. And I know your book, Consciouspreneur, is a lot about that, about the qualities that create success for people. And clearly, we're talking about several of them here: level of consciousness, ability to be aware and self-reflective, ability to catch yourself, living in that, in your perception rather than in the facts, and then rewrite that. So we've already talked about a lot of it, but I mean, you have such experience with this. What else do you see that's so required to be a successful consciouspreneur?
The number one thing, and this actually has come like across, what's funny is when you're looking for something, you find it, as we've been talking about. But across the board, educational content I've been looking at, podcasts I've been listening to from people you wouldn't expect saying this, have been saying the importance of emotional awareness and emotional regulation.
Yeah,
Um,
100%. I teach
as
a lot
I
of
think,
programs around those two.
I mean,
Uh,
I mean, I think it's quite possibly the life hack that none of us are
yeah.
willing to see.
Yeah, yeah. I used to, so
Um,
it's really funny you say that. I used to teach a program called Dealing with Difficult People, and I would teach the principles of it, and then I would see people not be able to apply it. So I went back
mm,
to the person who was my contractor, and I said, I'm going to propose another training for you that needs to go with the dealing with difficult people. And it was emotional self-regulation at work, because I could give all the great phrases of how to de-escalate or how to deal with, quote unquote, a difficult person, which, by the way, my bottom line of that is there are no difficult people, only people that you have yet to learn how to, to communicate with. So, which, is always an interesting twist. But if people can't
yes.
self-regulate, then they won't be able to communicate in a way that's effective and successful. So say more about that. You're so spot on.
Yeah, they'll, at the very least, they'll be making worse decisions from what I would call a lower vibrational place, right? And one of the ways that I explain this to a lot of people is, let's think of two people who are starting on their fitness journey. One of them is going to the gym because they hate their bodies, and the other one is going to the gym to see what they can do. Who do you think, all things being equal, is going to have more success? One of them is coming from a much higher vibrational, empowered place. The other one is coming from this place of fear, unworthiness, depression, like not a good place. And so I talk a lot about this kind of like this vibrational, I've got the vibe check behind me here from Abraham Hicks, the emotional guidance scale. But really what it is, are you aware of what you're feeling? And can you recognize what that's trying to teach you? Abraham Hicks and a lot of the greats will often say your emotions, your feelings are like a GPS system, like a navigational system that we have in cars and on our phones. Most of us are driving around with the maps turned off, lost and angry. We have no idea how to vocalize. We have no vocabulary for what we're feeling. Brene Brown talks about this in her book, The Atlas of the Heart. Most people can feel up to 80 some emotions and can name 3. That
Wow.
that is incredible dissonance, right?
Yeah.
So they can, and this was me. I mean, I was either angry, sad, or happy. That was it, right? I didn't know anything else. And one of the big reasons was, as a hockey player and as a man growing up in the 90s and early 2000s, we were taught, don't let others see your emotions because they'll use it against you, right?
I don't
We
think
don't,
that was just a 90s and 2000s thing.
yeah, true.
It
True.
might predate that.
Yeah, probably a all the time thing, right? Because,
Right.
hey, don't let other people see you as emotional, especially so men, that's one thing. Women were often told your emotions are too much, your emotions are inconvenient for everybody else, so just keep them to yourself, right? And so then what we do is, not only do we keep them to ourselves, we actually block ourselves from knowing what we're feeling.
Right.
And for a long time, I remember my first session with a psychologist, I said, I feel like there's a door that's closed in my brain and I don't know what it is I'm feeling. And I was going through a challenging time in my life at this time. And she said, well, what do you feel about that? And I said, I feel weird. She said, weird
Yeah.
is not an emotion. That you can,
Yeah.
that's your blanket stating, saying something that's not an emotion. And so what we need to do is we need to recognize, okay, what am I feeling?
Mhm.
And okay, great. Now I know what I'm feeling. Also, what does that feel like for me? Like, what does it feel like in my body to feel this way so that I can recognize it? And what might this be trying to teach me? If it were a GPS system and I'm feeling frustrated and angry and whatever about this thing that this team member did, what might that be trying to teach me in the context of the rest of my life?
Yeah.
Because, I mean, why not use it? Why
Yeah.
not use this built-in system that's sitting there waiting for us? And most people are like, I don't want to feel the bad emotions, so I'm just going to avoid them. and then we push them down, and then they come through in a triggering moment or a screaming at our kids moment that we don't want.
Or they numb. They numb
Yes.
with their phone, with the constant dopamine drip, with, I'm honestly, I am stunned, Gavin, at now, like, everybody is dropping mushroom gummies, and there's mushroom drinks, these, feel good drinks that, non-alcoholic, but they're, they've got mushroom in them or THC in them. It's everywhere. I mean, THC gummies and mushroom
everywhere.
It's everywhere.
Especially in Canada. They throw them at us when we cross the border. That's because, it's like it's federally regulated now. So yeah, I feel you.
Oh, interesting. Yeah. So I just think, that when I was a therapist, one of the things that I learned as a therapist is your psychological and emotional development ends when your addiction begins.
Mm.
And I think we are a nation, and maybe, more than just a nation, because Canada as well, and the developed world, that addiction is beginning. I mean, I see 2-year-olds with, the phone in their face, scrolling at, 3 years old, 5 years old, and parents using that. My generation, parents would say, oh, using the TV as a babysitter, but the TV was only in one place,
Yes.
these tablets and smartphones, it's everywhere. It's in the car, it's in the grocery aisle, with parents, the kids scrolling on the phone. So if psychological and emotional development ends when addiction begins, what does that say about our current generation?
It's a concerning trend.
Right. And then look at the outcomes, right? The increase of teenage suicidality and addictions and delayed launching, failure, if you will, failure to thrive, which is a phrase used for infants, but now it's being used for 20-somethings who are living at home, up all night playing video games and sleeping all day and, dropping out of college. And college admission rates are lower here in the U.S. than they've ever been, not ever, but in the last whatever decades. So yeah, I do see this. So you're spot on that, being conscious has a lot to do with our ability to feel, manage, and regulate our emotions.
And even if we take it to kind of the other end of the spectrum of, we've got the people who are struggling and literally can't even get out of their own basement and out of their own head, right? And then we've got these people who are wildly successful on the outside, yet they're completely unfulfilled. They have no idea why they're working so hard. We were just talking on our kind of like marketing intel meeting here with one of the companies I work with of like, one of the ads we're going to run is like, if you're seeing this on date night because you're checking your phone for work emails, this is for you, right? Because people are so addicted to, I got to check work emails. I got to know if I made any sales. I got to check my Stripe account. I got to do this. They're so addicted to those dopamine hits that they're losing their family. And it's like these kind of like little breaks. And again, if they could just recognize, well, what is it that I'm chasing here? What is it that I'm missing here? And half the time, all these mushroom drinks and all these things could be replaced by just feeling your emotions.
Right? Allow yourself to feel the way you feel, because you know what? It will pass.
It will pass.
It will pass. When you let yourself just be present to what you're feeling in the moment, it will pass. You will come back to a place of stasis and regulation. And
you'll probably learn something, which is nice.
Yeah. And right. And again, you won't learn something by pointing the finger out there, but what is it about me that I'm feeling anxious about this, or I'm feeling upset or stressed by this? What is it about me that this is now in my space?
Yes.
That's a good conversation, Gavin. This is really great. So you have founded the Maverick Coaching Academy. Is that, I have the name right?
Yeah, that's kind of like the overarching thing where I do a lot of my coaching from.
Most of your coaching. So if people want to hunt you down over there in Winnipeg and talk to you and work with you, or people on your team, what's the best way for people to get in touch with you? And before you say that, any closing thoughts that you want to wrap up with today?
Yeah, I'll just close with something that I think is not enough people share, is that, we've had this conversation about externalizing and all these things, and we're often looking for the next thing, right? So many business owners are looking for the next thing, the next hack, the next, oh, I need to get better at this or that. I would actually say that 99% of the people who are entrepreneurs, business owners, and have invested in themselves in some way, shape, or form already, probably already have everything they need inside of them to succeed. The only thing that you're likely missing, if you're listening to this right now, is a belief in yourself that you can do it.
Yeah.
And so I would just encourage people, like, what if instead of trying to buy the next course and invest in the next thing, what if you just like listen to your own intuition a little bit more? What if you went on a few more walks and let all these inputs settle? You probably don't even need to listen to 100 podcasts a week, like listen to one and then let the inputs settle and learn from that. Because there's just so much information out there. So can we take that information we already have and just apply some self-belief?
Right. Apply it. Right.
Yes.
I like to say that knowledge does not create transformation, but knowledge applied will change your life.
That's it. We could, every single person could have washboard abs and $1 million in income a year based on YouTube. Like they could, like it's actually that good now.
Yeah. It's really that good.
But not many people do.
Yeah.
So it's not knowledge applied, like you said. As far as where people can find me, I mean, you can always come up to Winnipeg. It's a little cold in the winter, but
it's very cold. You've got snow already up there in Winnipeg.
We've got snow. I do have a sauna in my backyard, so I just put that in.
Nice.
Where I'm putting the majority of my focus right now, first of all, you can join the pre-sale list for the book. I'll share that with you, Jackie, and your team. Consciouspreneur, that'll be out in January 2025. So if you're listening to this and it's already out, you can go pick it up. I'm putting a lot of energy into YouTube because I really enjoy the platform. At Coach Gavin McHale, I've got one money mindset visualization that a lot of people use daily and find a lot of value in as well. So that's there for free. If you want to find me on your standard Instagram, I do put some energy into that. At Gavin McHale 1 is those are the best places to find me.
Beautiful. Really, really great, Gavin. It's been so great having this conversation with you. I really think we touched on some very integral things about the human condition and how people can really look within and engage life more consciously. So thank you for being my partner in this conversation today. I really enjoyed it.
Thanks for having me, Jackie. It's been awesome.
You bet.